Rivalry week in the state of Florida means Gators, Noles and Gators, Florida State, Florida. Here we go. We're going to talk it up for the next hour right here at the Voice of College Football. And George is giving it to you. There you go. And
Tis
we're
the
going to
season.
have a Florida guest on here, our buddy David Waters from Gators Breakdown here to talk it up. Big game James Coleman next to me, fifth quarter college football, Den Media Group. Get on over there right here on YouTube. Check out what James has going on. We will find out more later. Georgitis, of course, the Renegade Report right here on YouTube. And George has been kind enough to host our post game here at the Voice of College Football after every FSU game. So we appreciate George for doing that. Guys, how we doing tonight?
Good. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving to both of you and everybody else out there. These two, along with Chris Frazier, make our Florida State show go, and therefore our channel here at the Voice of College Football. So we appreciate them. So especially this hour, this is what I'm thankful for right here. All right. James and I got together with Chris the other day to talk up the Jordan Travis situation. And George, let me get your take on that in regards to, I guess, the obvious. The leader's gone, or one of the leaders. Don't want to pin that on one guy, but the leader of the offense, and arguably one of the best players on the team, certainly. Just your thoughts about Jordan Travis's situation.
Yeah, look, first and foremost, thoughts and prayers to him and his family. And you hope that he can get back to 100% and possibly work out for the combine or whatever the case may be, have his shot at the pros. And, you know, like he's done in the past and any adversity he's faced, and he's faced a ton of adversity, some stuff in the public, some stuff not throughout his career, that it's just amazing and a testament to the young man he is. He has a strong faith and a strong family and support system behind him, including Coach Norvell. You know, and just the way the team handled it, the way the whole thing went down, you just hate it for the young man on senior night, you know, to go down like that, you know, this close to the playoffs and finally paying everything off after being at Florida State for 4 years and the whole journey and the climb. But at the same time, what you've seen from Jordan is he's got right behind Tate Rodemaker. You've seen Jordan go out there with the NIL campaign. He's made some different, you know, 18 Believe shirts and stuff with the proceeds going to Tate. And he's getting everybody fired up about him. I don't think, you know, it's quite as devastating as the casual observer from a national perspective believes. But at the end of the day, obviously it's a step down. No matter who you're going to put up there behind Jordan Travis, there's a reason he was the starter, Heisman contender the entire year up until the point that he got injured there in that game. So yeah, that's it. Just hope he gets better, and just really proud of the overall makeup of the team and how everybody's kind of rallied around him, and then in turn Tate Rodemaker. And I don't think there's going to have any problem in the next two games coming out with a victory.
James, how do you think this team, whether it's the team, the coaches, or you can extend it to the fan base? Of course, this is a rivalry game, and it is rivalry week. What's the difference between the Gators and the Canes?
Better defense by the Gators. Outside of that, defensively, yeah, much better defense not by the Gators. Oh, sorry, let me erase that. Better defense by the Hurricanes. Better defensive coordinator Lance Guidry is a really good guy. I'm actually excited that his name is popping up for LSU to go be their DC. Get away from here. Like, he's actually shows improvement for Miami. Those guys kind of play for him a little bit at times. He continues to get better players, he'll be better. But whereas USDC, I think he's very young, and I think he can be good, but I think he lacks the experience and not experience as a DC, life experience as an adult, and the tools that need to go in this tool shed, as he calls it, as well as I think sometimes you see guys who weren't necessarily the big time prospects. They didn't play on a high level. He played at a Division III school, and he's talking to a bunch of guys who were the elite. And sometimes when that happens, people feel the need to use words and verbiage that doesn't really get used a lot. So he throws around a lot of big words. And I remember the first time I ever heard him, the first thing I said is, I have no idea what this guy's talking about. And I made it. We made a YouTube short on my Den Media group, which I think has about almost over 30,000 views on it. Oh, Florida fans lit me up on that one. They're like, you must have never played football. Anybody can understand what he's saying. And I'm like, that's just not the way football works. Like, we all have an identity. Like, if you're a 4-down, that's why we see defensive coordinators who are 4-down guys. You have 4-down linemen. You're a 4-down lineman, cover 2 team. Mickey Andrews, one of the greatest defensive coordinators to ever coach, was a 4-down Tampa 2 type of guy. That's what we did. Like, we could do other things, but the basic of Florida State's defense was this. I can't tell you what the basics of Florida's defense is. I've seen times when they've gotten caught in many penalties where they're doing like wholesale defensive changes, like a hockey. The only thing it reminds me of is a hockey change. So I think their DC is doing too much at the level in which he is. And I think he might have, like, when I look at his career, he went from like a GA at Georgia to Southern Miss, being a DC at Southern Miss, to now getting here in a crazy short span. Like, that's quick. But offensively, where Florida fans are really arguing about, like, oh my God, Billy Napier needs an offensive coordinator, the last few games they've scored over 30 points. The offense hasn't had a hard time putting up points. It's the defense has had a hard time stopping people. Now, Graham Mertz isn't there, but I think they're going to come up with a pretty decent game plan to protect their young athletic quarterback. They're going to go probably watch heavy on the Boston College film to try to see what they can do with that, muddy up the game. I would even argue they probably go heavy watching the Boston College, the UM film, maybe what Virginia Tech attempted to do, and they did a good job because, again, when you look at the two teams, Virginia Tech and Miami both had great second quarters, and I believe Boston College's wave came in the fourth quarter, I believe, but the teams just ran, but all the teams were doing pretty decent. So I think that's what it's going to come down to. They're going to try to run the ball a lot, and to be honest with you, that's what I would try to do. Throwing the ball on us isn't, even though it looks to be a little bit more effective the last couple of weeks in terms of, because we went so long without having any touchdowns, passing touchdowns thrown on us. I think that's probably their best bet, is to try to run on us, and I think they've got a stable of running backs that are actually pretty darn good. I like ETN. I think it's Johnson or Robinson. It's Robinson. I like the other running back. Yep. And I think this kid, from what I've seen in a couple plays at quarterback, is pretty athletic, but there's not a lot of. I don't really have a true body of work to say this is what I like about him. He came in as a replacement during the game, and they didn't have a game plan for him. So it's different when people have a game plan for him. And I think our game plan is going to be, we're going to slow the box and we're going to dare you to throw on us.
George, what's it about this rivalry that gets you worked up?
This one, it's more like, to me, on my end of it, it's more like the people I see every day. I don't run into a ton of Miami fans. It's just kind of the people online. And there's like a real disrespect there between Miami and Florida State. But the Florida one is just bragging rights on the people you see on a daily basis. They think they're a little bit better. You know, they try to make out like people go to Florida State because they couldn't get into Florida, which isn't true. And, you know, Florida State about to get into the AAU, we're going to have that over them. So it's just one of those things. They think their stuff doesn't stink. They think they're a little bit better, but at the same time, they have the whole jean shorts wearing lot lizard thing going on. So yeah, Miami is my most hated rival, but Florida is just the one more for bragging rights on the daily. When it comes to the matchup, you know, Max Brown came out, showed some athleticism. Like James said, I think they're going to try to establish the run. He's going to make some plays. I have no doubt in the first half, probably on the zone read or some of the RPO stuff they have worked up, scripted. into the game plan. But, we've got a top 5 secondary in the nation with Ricky Pearsall and Eugene Wilson. They're both studs. They're both really good receivers. One's a true freshman. One's like a redshirt junior or something like that. 2 really good players, but is this redshirt freshman going to be able to come out and get the ball to them, when he needs to? That's going to be the question, because eventually Adam Fuller, whatever they come and show in the run game, whatever RPO stuff they have, Adam Fuller is going to adjust, and at some point in time, they're going to be stuck in these passing situations where they're just going to have to pass the ball. And are they going to be able to do it? Last year, they tore us up with Pearsall in the first half, and then, we blanked them in the second half. That got shut down. This year, they have Trey Wilson out there who's been playing a lot better. But, I just don't see it from this quarterback. If he comes out and does it, it'll be a hell of a thing, and Florida may have their quarterback going forward. But yeah, that's the main thing as far as that side of the matchup. And on the other end, I have every bit of faith in Tate Rodemaker as far as, the plays that I'm worried about on the other side. I feel like Tate can make those third down throws for you. He's going to have this thing pared down on the Florida State side. He's going to sit down with Mike Norvell. They're going to get his plays that he's comfortable with. They're going to have a great game plan like he does every week. And, we're also going to set up to, run the ball as well. So which team can run the ball better, and, who can make those throws on first down, and I think third down. I think Florida State has kind of the check mark in every area, but it is at the Swamp. It is at 7:00 at night.
Florida State Seminoles live here at the Voice of College Football. We got David Waters stopping by here from Gators Breakdown. We always appreciate the conversation with David. David, how you doing tonight?
Good, Mark. How about you, man?
Good to see you.
What's up, James?
Happy Thanksgiving.
What's up, Dave?
What's up, man?
All right. Before we dive into the nuts and bolts of the football on the field, always have to get your take on the rivalry. Of course, for Florida, it's Georgia, it's Tennessee, it's some others, but this is a little different, I would think.
Yeah, I'll just for this one, some of it's location, some of it's age, wherever you want to go. Of who means more? Is it mostly it's between Georgia and Florida State? So that's usually the two at the top. When you talk to most Gator fans, if it's a younger crowd, if they're in the state of Florida, it's mostly Florida State. But if it's an older crowd, they tend to lean towards Georgia. So, but yeah, this one's definitely top 2 there, Mark.
All right, we're going to get to find out about your quarterback. And so we'll start the conversation there, and then I'll turn it over to James and to George. But, this Max Brown, a little bit different of a quarterback than Graham Mertz.
Yeah, absolutely. A little more athletic, can push the ball down the field. But, there's a little bit of element of surprise as far as as the passing game goes. I think, what we have seen so far is there's more RPO element in the offense. There's more of a running athletic quarterback at the quarterback position now there for Florida. So still a wait and see approach on how much he'll throw and maybe some of the throws they feel comfortable with. I mean, he's second year in the program, so he should know the playbook a good bit. But but beyond those scripted drives, how far can Florida dive into the playbook? How far do they need to dive into the playbook? I think is a big part of this. If Florida has to fight from behind, and can they unleash more of the offense, or are they just kind of stuck with a certain game plan, and he's just not comfortable with a whole lot. So that's one big question I have there, Mark, of, if this Gator defense gets off to a bad start, can they rely on Max Brown to bring him back? And, that goes into his arm. So third downs, of course, is going to be very important. But, yeah, much more athletic quarterback here for Florida, and we'll see what that means for Saturday night. But certainly will be used. You can't – Florida's got 5 wins, got to get bowl eligible. There's no coaching scared right now because of injury. Who's behind him? I mean, Florida's got to find a way to win this game. Max Brown's legs should be a big part of that.
All right, guys.
Question.
Anything for David?
Yeah, I'm curious. What is what's the overall mood of the fan base when it comes to this? I know there's a lot of obviously split between what people feel about Billy at this point right now. But what do people really feel like they've seen on this team? Do they feel like it's really a dearth in talent? Do they feel like maybe the injury bug, or like what going into this? Because this is Well, there's reality and then there's Twitter. And I know two of the things that I remember getting in trouble with is that, again, I always tell people I don't look at the roster per se. I look at the schedule. Yeah. And I said the schedule bodes that Florida is a 5-7 to a 6-6 ball club based upon the schedule. I actually said Miami 7-5. I think they're about to make me a liar by losing to Boston College, but that's another podcast. But what is it kind of the thoughts coming up into this season and really going into this game?
Yeah, James, a lot of it's been the frustration with the kind of the coaching side of it and the special teams issues, the substitution issues, just kind of the game day operation for Billy Napier's kind of been a sticking point in his second season at Florida. But look, he's not a first-time head coach. He's not learning on the job. Now, he might be learning on how different it is at a big program like Florida. And like you said, when you in this schedule of the SEC, you can't really have a bye or, an off week and expect to go out there. I mean, Florida learned that versus Arkansas a few weeks ago. So I think, for the fan base, it's kind of just the sticking point of we thought we'd be further along with just the simple things that are now showing up week in and week out that really contributes to Florida losing some games. I mean, last week you had Missouri, ETN, for all the good he does, of course, but we got a key in and he runs out of bounds and stops the clock for Missouri and saves them a timeout, saves 40 seconds on the clock. And, now they're not in such a big hurry there at the end of the game. But it's been, special teams issues almost every week. Those kind of corrected themselves as the season's come about there. But, it's just all in all, it's just, okay, Florida's a young team. They kind of got beat up a little bit this year too. But if you had just had some of the better decision-making for Florida, then maybe that equates to another win or two. So, yeah, you can live with the youth. You can live with some of the injuries, but that also means at the same time, the game day operation needs to be top-notch, and week in and week out, it's not.
Yeah, talking about, kind of the game day operation and stuff, I know y'all have had y'all's issues with special teams. Florida State has a kind of elite special teams really this year. The field goal kicker does a 180 after kind of messing with his groove last year. I think he's somewhere around 80, high 80s, 90% this year. And the punt coverage unit has been sensational. How do you see that kind of affecting the game, because it could be a pretty big factor with the rivalry game this week?
Yeah, Florida switched kickers earlier in the season. Trace Mack is now the kicker now. And, hey, look, besides the game winner he missed versus Arkansas has been pretty much on point this year. Just the most important kick of the season he missed. So, of course, last week did hit a late game leading field goal to put Florida in a 2-point, or Florida with an advantage over Missouri late in the game before Missouri scored that last field goal to win the game. So it kind of bounced back from the Arkansas performance, but kick return has been better when they get a chance. Florida's been returning kicks and punt return as well. I mean, against Arkansas a few weeks ago was probably one of their best punt return games that they've had under the Billy Napier era. It's Ricky Pearsall, start wide receiver for the Gators, is the main punt returner there. But yeah, it's you hope, for Florida's sake, just because of some earlier special team miscues this year, that it doesn't rear its head this year or this week versus Florida State, given, look, Florida State's a good opponent. You don't want to give them, if it's offense or defense, okay, you can live with it, but you don't want to give them special teams as well.
Injury bug. There's a lot of pieces on the offensive line that I'm hearing about. I kind of want this one guy to compete because after seeing what LSU's running back did to him, I'm not necessarily sure how physical a linebacker is. But I'm hearing about Wingo possibly might not be going in the double. Are there any other injuries to key players that might not be that might rear their heads in this game?
Yeah, Jay's Austin Barber, starting left tackle for the season, wasn't at practice yesterday either. Or he was at practice, but he did not practice, arm in a sling there. So that would be one where he went down. He did not play versus Missouri last week either, but Florida was still able to get the ground game going, especially in the second half versus Missouri. So Lindell Hudson comes in kind of with Damian George, who went down last week versus Missouri. So Florida's basically on their second, third string offensive tackles right now, especially with Barber looking like unless he practices today, but arm in a sling at practice yesterday doesn't sound so positive. We'll talk to Billy Napier here in about 40 minutes or so to get an update. But, along the offensive line, Florida's beat up there at the tackle spot. As far as defense, we'll see what that means for Wingo. He did die for a tackle last week versus Missouri, and you could kind of see an injury that he dealt with last year, a shoulder injury. Did get back in the game, so we'll see if he's back out there. But yeah, James, you brought up FSU's run game scares the heck out of me because Florida's linebackers cannot fit a gap to save their lives on a consistent basis this year. Taraja Mitchell, a transfer from Ohio State, got probably most of his extensive action last week versus Missouri. One big run that they gave up early in that game to get Missouri's first touchdown, where he was just completely out of position there. So Florida beat up at offensive tackle, at linebacker. The big one, we'll see if we get Devin Moore back, one of the cornerbacks for Florida. Missed a couple weeks with a concussion this past week. One of the better corners, but he just can't stay on the field.
You know, we had a situation going into this game last year where the Florida team was almost in the same position from a record standpoint, the quality of the results. Florida State is obviously elevated, but then they lose Jordan Travis. But Florida also loses Graham Mertz. I see a 6.5-point spread. Does that feel right to you? It just seems like there should be a little bit more separation, especially considering Florida did stay in this game deep into the fourth quarter last year, but there was a guy, Anthony Richardson, when he was on, he was a wild card.
I think injury mark certainly plays into it. Florida is also a better team under Billy Napier at home in these night games as well. Like I said, better at home, but did lose to Arkansas a few weeks ago at home in an unexplainable game. But also, you go back to the Tennessee game. Tennessee's a better team than Florida this year, but Florida completely dominated that game earlier in the season when Tennessee came into the swamp. So they do play better at home. This night game, night crowd, Florida fighting for bowl eligibility. It's a rivalry game. Crowd would be into it. Vegas is probably erring on the side of caution here. I don't know I don't know how much betting is on this game just in general from either side, because there's just so much questions, or even the country out there. I mean, does anybody feel confident in what they're going to see out there Saturday night, given the quarterback situations for both teams? So 6.5, maybe a little low, but I'm not surprised to see it there just because of all the questions.
Yeah, I think part of that line has to do with what we've talked about, and both teams wanting to establish the run. I think this could be a pretty shortened game. I think the under, I'm not sure what the spread is, but you're probably likely to hit on that under for those bettors out there. But I have kind of a two-parter here, because we all heard the press conference at the beginning of the year with your coordinator and talking about how multiple you guys want to be. Of course, we were talking about you're going to have an identity. So kind of as the year's going on, I'm just kind of wondering if you can tell us a little bit of how y'all will set up to stop Florida State's run. And I know Prince I'm not even going to mess it up. Prince, I know he's a great edge rusher in pass rush situations, but I know he had issues setting the edge early on, like against Kentucky. But I've seen he's had some better grades. I haven't watched a ton of film, but just as far as the defense overall, and especially setting the edge, when we're likely to run it straight at Prince, I'm guessing early on in the game.
Yeah, I would expect so. Test the edges for Florida's, run defense, and as I already mentioned, linebackers have had issues fitting their scheme gaps as well. I would certainly, if I'm Florida State, look, whether you got confidence in Rodemaker or not, given the issues Florida has had this year stopping the run spot, and it's not just stopping the run; it's explosive runs, just 40-yard, 50-yard runs that have really, really hurt this Florida defense. So going back, maybe. Because, Florida is playing so many young guys on defense. Look, that's not the complete excuse. You mentioned Austin Armstrong, defensive coordinator, saying how multiple this Florida defense is going to be. Well, as young as Florida is, it might be too much. And it looks like they're trying to say, this is our defense. You're going to play in our defense, and we hope you playing in this defense and us not changing it up a whole lot will pay off down the road. Hey, but look, Florida's got to get another win. Florida needs another win. If the defense has to be pared down, if it needs to be made easier for all these freshmen that you're playing on defense, then so be it. You got to go get a sixth win. Overall, it probably is a little too complicated, but we got to think coming down into late this season where a must-win game that you would just maybe pare it down for a young defense and figure out, key on one thing for this Florida State offense, and if you can stop it, great. If not, you tried your best and you tried to maybe sell out and stop the Florida State run game. If Rodemaker comes in and beats you in the swamp, it just happens.
Yeah, that's one of the things. That's kind of what I see them doing, trying to sell out load the box, make them beat you. But the problem is with the Rodemaker is, and I think Booger McFarland is probably the only person who's kind of used some rationale when it comes to all of this. Jordan Travis is dynamic, and I always joke with people, it's a reason why somebody's number one, and it's a reason why somebody's number two. But he said they still have two of the best wide receivers in the nation. Yep. They still have two dynamic running backs. They still have one of the best defenses statistically in the nation, especially again in stopping people from scoring. None of that changes with the quarterback. So and Florida's just defense outside of not having the identity is banged up, is weak. And the secondary was already one of the weaker spots going into the season. And when you add some things, it's gonna be as my guy Greg McGarity, former UF assistant athletic director in Georgia AD says, it's gonna be a tough road to hoe. And I am curious, but I would bring the pressure. And I know that it looked like they did that. What were some of the things that Missouri did very well last week that kind of scare you going into this week?
James, kind of go to your point too, and I haven't brought it up as Florida defense too. They can't tackle either, and that's been a lot of these explosives that I talk about. It's because Florida will get a guy there, but it bounces off, and there goes the offensive player. Missouri did that last week too, and that's what scares me. Relating it from last week, James, to what we might see this week. Luther Burden last week from Missouri, wide receiver, very physical receiver, goes over the middle. Guys in positions to make a tackle, and they just fly off of him, bump off of him. Now, you got Coleman out there, that big physical presence, and Johnny Wilson, his big physical presence there at receiver. The matchup of Florida's DBs, whether it be a cornerback, whether it be a safety, I haven't seen lately where they're that ready for a physical style of game on defense and go tackle those guys, make a big play, make a big hit on those guys. That would honestly, beyond scheme, that is my biggest worry, is the physicalness that we saw Missouri play with at times last week and how that translates to Florida State skill players. Florida being physical is probably my biggest worry for that defense.
I only have one other question for you, Dave, and that deals with the program overall. And we're going into a second recruiting signing class for Billy Napier. So we're looking at a top 5 class if he's able to hold on to it for the next 3 weeks. If that class is more of a 13 to 20 class in the nation, is he feeling more heat? Is there more, talk on the message boards? Is there more real heat on him from the people that count, administrators and so forth? Because unless I'm missing something, maybe not a whole lot of progress on the field through almost 2 seasons versus the hope of, okay, look at this recruiting class that's coming in.
Yeah, Mark, that's got to stay top 10 and close to the top 5, 6, 7. Granted, you were 3 most of this football season. You were up there in that top 3. This class has to stay there. I mean, look, and we also know playing who you play year in and year out, Texas, Oklahoma coming into the SEC as well. The class, Billy Napier needs to start stacking classes, and he hasn't been able to stack them yet. This would be his first foundational class where you can kind of stack it. Are there good players that he's brought in before? Absolutely. There are. Just not enough of them. And he needs more of those guys that he's identified so far. Look, he needs that top class where you get about 20, 25 guys coming in and you hit on about 12 of them at a high rate. So it's, that class has got to stay top 10, close to top 5. There would be a whole lot of fan base pressure if it doesn't, honestly. But if it doesn't stay top 10, unless DJ Lagway is one of the most special quarterbacks ever to take the field for Florida in the next few years, history says that recruiting is not good enough for it to work out for Billy Napier. So, yeah, it's got to be top 10. And this way, if the pressure ain't on now, it's going to work itself out where it ain't going to be good enough anyway.
Yeah, I think one of the things, too, in recruiting right now is you're looking at 2 guys who are currently shopping rivals. And, I mean, obviously, what it comes down to, I remember when I played, most of my teammates, it was either down FSU Florida or FSU Miami. It always comes down to it. But a lot of these guys that you had decommit and the guys who are shopping, came when you guys had that really good bang, bang, bang weekend back in June. And I think you also had a couple in July. And that would be Aaron Childs. Is it Aaron Childs? I might be saying
Yep. That's Childs.
And Medarius Hayes. Aaron Childs coming to setting an official visit to Tallahassee to come see Florida State. And Hayes really flirting strongly with the University of Miami right now. Do you think the play of this game will have a lot of bearing when it comes to that? And really, what is the issue when it seems like Billy Florida has opened up every resource in order to make him successful in recruiting on field, and I remember it's like 1,000 off field guys that were being hired, and you have the special assistant to shoelace tying and things of that nature that they were releasing down there in Florida. So if you could fill us in on some of those things.
Yeah. Jay, I think the further you get away from season one, I think you can be more negatively recruited for results on the field. And so like season one, you can sell vision. You can say, this is why we need you. He can still do a little bit of that, but I think the further away you get from year one, you've got to start showing tangible results on the field. And look, the players ain't going to care what Dan Mullen left Billy Napier. They're only going to go by what the record is showing on the field, or what progress are you showing on defense, or what progress are you showing on offense. And look, these decommits have been for Florida's defense, and Florida's defense is terrible right now. Look, you're losing guys to Georgia too for that. That's one. So no shame in that, but how are you ever going to catch up if you're the team you're chasing? Your guys that you're losing are going to that school. So one part of that is, as good as this class is, it's really out-of-state focus for Florida. So I think when you start having those losses, guys, when they start shopping around, they don't have that link that a lot of in-state guys do. So I think it's hard. And look, good thing for Florida, Billy Napier didn't sell these guys on, hey, I'm going to go win 19 games this year. I think everybody knew that. So, but to get these guys committed in the summer, going into the season, it built a little bit of pad for Florida. You knew if it was going to be a bad season, you're probably going to lose some of them. But now you built some pad. You've lost some. Hopefully, you've kind of stymied that for now. But I do think focus so heavy out of state, record eventually is going to catch up to you, and it's the bad results on defense that kind of really reared its head, and some of those guys start shopping around. So for Childs, I'm hearing right now the linebacker out of off the top of my head, Maryland, I believe. He really intrigued playing in the SEC, and I think that's helps Florida stick with him there. And then with Hayes, I say also watch out for Bama. I think Bama's trying to get back in there with him as well. He flirted with Miami all offseason, a lot of visits to Miami. I know he was in the stadium for that inexplicable fumble where they should have knelt the ball, and he was kind of making fun of him a little bit there. But yeah, anytime guys take visits, it's not 100% shut down. I don't care what they say.
Yeah, especially this day and age and the generation we have now. Kind of the point to what you said, man, it's really similar to where Florida State was in 2021 when you look at the two teams and the trajectory there. Year 3 is going to be the kind of prove-it year for Billy Napier. It's going to be time to put up or shut up. It kind of stinks that you'll have such a tough schedule. But to the point of being ready and going and getting those wins, no matter what it takes in year 3, in the past, Billy's been kind of late to kind of offer these transfer portal guys, try to be the last visit on campus, and then before they even make it there, they've already committed to another program, stuff like that. Do you expect him to really attack the portal and go for broke on, getting those wins in year 3? Because, you're going to need, even 8 or 9 against that schedule would be considered a pretty damn good year, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. We've already seen with some guys who have put their name in the portal, Cottrell from Texas A&M, some of these Ivy League offensive linemen, defensive linemen that have put their name into the portal the last couple of days, said they've been offered by Florida. So it definitely seems like there is what I will say has probably been one of my biggest issues with Billy Napier is the sense of urgency. And it does seem like that one is there now. The sense of urgency in the transfer portal, his first couple of cycles, I think really hurt Florida. And that's not to say he hasn't got good players out of the portal. He absolutely has. But kind of going back to my recruiting point earlier, he just needed more of them. But it does seem like there was not so much of a sense of urgency, this chosen path of a quote-unquote slow rebuild to maybe build it up the right way. I don't know if you have that luxury in today's college football. And just the path of everything, the teams you have to play week in and week out, the teams you got to play week in and week out coming up as well with Texas and Oklahoma coming in. And then if it's going to stunt your recruiting growth because they're going to start looking at results, I don't see how you really sell a slow rebuild. So I do think in year 3, when you got to play Miami, you got to play UCF, you got to play Texas, you got to play Georgia, LSU, Florida State. I mean, the schedule next year is brutal for Florida. You hope there's some kind of balance because, I mean, a good year could still be 8-4, 7-5 with that schedule. Is that really going to go a long way if guys aren't really detailed in to know who Florida's playing? I've maintained that if Florida is building it the right way, no matter what the schedule is in year 3, you should be able to tell they're a much better team.
I think there's a stigma when it comes to building it the right way that Mike Norvell is kind of completely disproven about portal guys, because they're just not like it was in the past. With the portal, you get guys like Johnny Wilson who are 3 or 4 years at the program, and those are your all's guys. But sorry, I wasn't trying to.
Yeah. I mean, it's reality of college football now. I mean, and the fan base is going to put more pressure on you too when an in-state rival hits the transfer portal and has success. LSU hits the transfer portal, has success. I mean, there's plenty of examples of, hey, you don't have to build it slow. It's just your choice of doing it that way. Look, it doesn't mean the way Billy Napier's working won't work out. It means you got to have patience to see it work out. But at the same time, people say, oh, patience, it'll work. Patience doesn't mean it will work. But you've got to, I guess you got to just sit and wait and see if it will work.
Yeah, I'm looking at the 2 Go ahead, James.
No, go ahead. There's no problem.
I was just going to say, I'm looking at the 2 worst games in the SEC next season is Kentucky and Mississippi State.
Yeah, a Kentucky team. A Kentucky team that has pretty much put it on Florida the last couple of years, has given Florida fits in the last decade, half decade, 10 years. I mean, even when Florida was winning, it's been close games besides the 2020 game. And Mississippi State, but that's your 2 worst SEC games.
You've always said, David, to me that you don't like cupcake games. So
I'm glad you remember that, Mark. I think I'd take it next year just a little bit. But hey, but here's the thing: if Florida had a cupcake game this year, they'd be bowl eligible already. That's the thin line of it right now. If they had a MAC team instead of Utah game 1, we wouldn't even be saying Florida's so desperate to beat Florida State this coming up Saturday. That's just the thin line Florida's playing with right now. Hey, look, that's another thing about Billy Napier. I will say, and it's not much of an excuse, he has had probably the hardest stretch of schedules a coach has walked into at Florida. And that's not to say there's not other tougher schedules. I'm just saying for Florida coaches, this is probably one of the tough stretches the coaches have ever walked into. And if you're going to choose to build it this way, you're going to see some of these results, but it's not the complete excuse out there. There's a lot of things he could have done better, game in, game out, where Florida could probably have a couple more wins on the schedule. But it is definitely puts the margin for error really, really slim for Billy Napier.
Yeah, I wouldn't even really go to that. I mean, Charlotte and McNeese State aren't necessarily winning their conference or anything like that. So, I mean, the cupcakes were there, and you took advantage of them, not in a bad way. You played those very well, especially early on in the season. I do believe that's probably the best time when you're trying to clean up things and get some live looks against somebody other than that. But, it's been it's been hit or miss with a lot of the different things, but I think it's just as Billy's trying to build and create his identity. And I think it definitely stinks when it seems like Florida State has done a complete 180 and you didn't walk into the same scenarios, even though people try to, which is ironic, the only time I use the rival as an example is when I heard Urban Meyer say, once I signed a dotted line, those become my guys. They're no longer the other guys. But to see people say, well, Mike Norvell didn't get it going in year 3, and I have to explain to people, last I checked, we haven't had another nationwide pandemic where it shut down the world when you took your job. And you had your job for 3 months, and then all of a sudden the whole world shuts down. And you don't even know if you're playing football or not. So, but that did lead to some of the things that Florida State has been able to take advantage of, i.e., not just the transfer portal. The transfer portal in itself is not a new concept. That actually happened with Darren Mullen's time. When the transfer portal came about. What's new is the suspension of APR. With APR supposedly coming back after the 2024 season, how do you see this really affecting Florida if they don't get it done this year? Because if they bring it back, like they say they're going to do, it won't be a way to just wholesale change guys, because you're going to be responsible for those scholarships if they don't come back.
Yeah, I mean, Billy Napier's mentioned he wants to build through high school recruiting. He's mentioned it over and over again. And he's been credit to him. He's been asked about recruiting the last couple of weeks, and he doesn't shy away from it like the past coach did, talking about it during the season. So Billy Napier's been fully dove in of like, hey, I want to compare it to the NFL. Build through the draft, get your guys through free agency. I want to recruit high school recruiting and supplement through the transfer portal. So his plan has been pretty much laid out. So I don't think it really changes much from how he really, really wants to do things.
Great stuff from David Waters, Gators Breakdown. David, let everyone know where to find you and when the next show's coming up.
Yeah, Florida State Preview posted it this morning. Everybody can find it at gatorsbreakdown.com, YouTube, and podcast platforms out there as well.
Awesome. David, always good to see you, man.
What's up, James?
Dave, who's winning and what's the score?
I got my copium orange and blue glasses on for this one. I rarely go with it. I usually if I'm going to Vegas, I'm betting FSU. But the heart, I got the heart on this one. Florida 28-25. Weird score.
Have you been newly named to the College Football Playoff Committee? Are you trying to bail them out? Is that what you're...
As I said, there's a lot of hopium with that one. I just maybe find a way to get that 6th win. But as I said, if I was going to Vegas, my wallet would take over, and I'd be going to FSU.
There's no problem. I was just at this Seminole Gator thing called Chop and Chomp that they do every year in Jacksonville, and the Gator guy who does he does local radio up here in Jacksonville, and literally said it was the most depressing thing I've ever heard. I'm not a Gator fan, and I was depressed for Gator fans. His outlook, he wasn't the greatest in the world, but it was like, we're bad at everything in life, but we're going to beat Florida State, and I'm like. But at least you came with like, you know what, this is me being a homer. I'm not even mad at that. Like he was like straight faced. I'm like, I can't argue with that. But but yours, I appreciate the information and the intel. Yeah,
I rarely go homer route. If anything, people tell me I need to be more homer from the Gator side. But I just maybe a little bit too much eggnog this week or something. I don't know. Thanks, guys.
Good to see you, Dave.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
Yeah. All right. Great stuff from David Waters.
And then there was 3.
Here we are.
One of the things that I just want to say about our fan base is I love it, but we are very we guys, again, I've said it week in and week out. We have to stop being afraid of success. You have to stop trying to nitpick. Like a lot of you guys may watch football, but you're not watching football intently. Today on my show, I actually showed the best. I think the best offensive line in college football is the University of Georgia, Alabama second after that. And I broke down the GG. I call it, it's the power.
Oh, we'll wait to see if James can make it back.
Yeah. But
let's start this conversation, George, just in case James isn't able to make it back. And if he's able to make it back, boom, he'll pop up. And he might be doing that here in just a second.
He's about to drop some knowledge on us.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. Sorry, camera.
You're good.
Whatever reason, it just shuts off. But people watch the game of football. And again, this is why they would not have been successful playing it. And this is why I'm for NIL. Anytime you're one of the top 2% of the population, you should get. If we're top 2% of podcasters, we'd be multimillionaires. A student athlete is the top 2% of everybody who plays sports. So, like, that's why they'll get paid. It's any top 2% of dentists, big time, like whatever. But
I think FCAT was the only thing I was top 2% at.
Well, when you Florida State has an offense that averages 40 points a game. they have an offense that almost averages 400 yards per game with Jordan Travis, but they were making the same complaints. Florida State has there's an award every year that goes out to the top offensive line in the nation. Florida State is a finalist for the top offensive line in the nation. When the stats and the facts and the video do not agree with your premise, you must change your idea of what you think is happening based upon what is actually happening. You are entitled to your own opinion. You are not entitled to your own facts. Florida State's offensive line is not bad. Florida State's offensive line, much like every offensive line in the nation, does not win 100% of the time. That's why other people are on there. Florida State's offensive line did not get Jordan Travis hurt. Jordan Travis got him in a violent game, got himself hurt by getting tackled when he probably could have went down by trying to be the competitor in which he is. Tate Rodemaker got sacked, but I just did a breakdown every Monday. It's not even just for members only. Members get to ask questions while I'm watching it so that they can be educated. It broadcasts at 6 p.m. to the masses. So you can literally see me go down the condensed version of the game, every play. People are saying in their mind, Florida State got bullied by an FCS offensive line, where we literally stopped, screenshot, and saw perfect protection at times. People don't get open sometimes. Sometimes people slip and fall. Bad things happen. And I had to show Georgia on a on a power G play. And one of the hardest things that people don't realize that happens is basically the first puller kicks out the end man on the line of scrimmage. The next guy wraps around to a specific guy. Typically, the people at the end, they're tagging up to a linebacker. One person messes up in that play. You know what ends up happening? The play doesn't work. If everybody does what they're supposed to do, you know what happens? It is better than any artwork that Picasso could draw. And I showed them, and I'm like, this looks like, to the average person, looks like Georgia's offensive line got beat by some random team. When in fact, it wasn't it was just a lack of execution on that play. You're not having fun watching your team have one of the most successful seasons that they've ever had. Florida State has only had, I think, over 20 10-win seasons. So in the course of the lifetime of Florida State playing football, this has happened 20 times. Or maybe it's just 21, excuse me. They've only had undefeated regular seasons. So you have the potential to have 3 undefeated regular seasons. And people are literally nitpicking about stuff that they don't even know what they're nitpicking about. Nobody would say a 40-point per game offense stinks. Like, do you hear, or like not necessarily hear, do you read what your thumbs are typing? Like sometimes when you post this stuff, it happens. Bad things happen. 6'4", and sometimes you can't explain it. The only way you can explain it, as a guy who's blocked these guys, sometimes the guy's 6'4", 275 and runs a 4.5 in the 40. Gotcha. Sometimes you're tired. Sometimes somebody winked at your girlfriend in the stands. Who knows? But you want to win more than you win. You get 8 to 10 offensive possessions a game if you're good. Nobody's averaging 70 points a game. Washington, who I think actually has a dynamic offense with a Heisman Trophy winning candidate and a playoff team, they don't average more points than Florida State. In a conference that don't play defense. So that means they don't score on every offensive possession with the Heisman Trophy, but a guy who might win the Heisman. Stop asking your team or having expectations on your team to do something that has really only happened a few times. That'd be the 2013 national champions and the 2019 national champions. Florida State is really there. If they score 30 points and the defense does what they've been doing, hold teams under 30 points, you know what's going to happen? Statistically speaking, Florida State wins every time that happens. And that's probably more than likely what will happen. Sorry about that. Just like I saw it in the comments and I see it everywhere. Our offensive line isn't blocked. Our offensive line isn't good. And they're like, you show me the film, you show me what film you're watching, and then we can discuss it. But like based upon the film and what everybody says, it's not It's not there. But I think Tate is going to be fine. We're going to have I think Tate will keep him to 20 throws, like under 20 passes, and then we're going to probably try to run the ball 40 times. Same strategy we had against Louisville that worked when we played against Louisville.
Yep. Let him fire off that RPO game and hit those in-breaking routes. Yeah, and they can't tell the difference in the tight end and the offensive line either, which is infuriating. But it looks like you had something that you wanted to get to before we got out of here, didn't you, Mark?
Yeah, we got a couple minutes. Just wanted to hit you guys up with the number 5 ranking this week. Down from 4, Washington, the aforementioned Washington Huskies by James, up to number 4. How did that hit you guys? Obviously not well.
You know, I think everybody kind of figured it was going to happen. There was going to be a chance it was going to happen, even if Jordan hadn't gone down with them playing another ranked opponent. Whether the merit's there, whether it's right or you believe it or not, you know, with us being undefeated, it was going to happen. But again, and I hate to harp on something I say over and over again, look, this is a 4 TV product, and this committee has shown time and time again, the final week, they will throw out all the precedent they have set in the first 4 or 5 weeks. And if Florida State goes undefeated, you know, they're going to be in there. And obviously Michigan and Ohio State play, obviously, so that will knock one of them out. There's a chance Oregon beats Washington or vice versa, and one of them's out of it. So there's 2 or 3 different ways that Florida State gets in there, you know, as long as they stay undefeated. Now, if you get a loss, it's over. They're probably never going to put you in with a loss.
No, I have a problem. I don't have a problem with Florida State's ranked. I have a problem with the logic and the thought process. Because if the thought process is Washington has earned their spot because they beat 4 ranked teams, they have a resume better than everybody else that's ranked in front of them. So they should be ranked higher. Even if you kept Georgia because they're winning out and they're the defending back-to-back national champion, they have a resume that's better than Ohio State and Michigan. I believe Michigan has beaten what? Is it 1 ranked opponent this year in Penn State?
Yeah.
Which is, again, I'm not even saying that Michigan doesn't deserve to be in there. What I'm saying is if your train of thought is this, it's not consistent across the board, which leads you to be critiqued about everything. But the reality is, win and you're in. You beat Florida. You're going to play a Louisville who's ranked 9 right now. Will probably end up being ranked 8th. They're not going to leave an undefeated ACC champion that defeated a top 10 opponent at the end of the season with a backup quarterback out of it, especially if they play at a high level. And even with the excuse of it not being Jordan Travis, I told people it's literally 6 weeks until the first college football playoff game. A lot can happen. That is half of a football season. You can literally get a guy prepared to do that. Not saying he will, not saying he's going to play to Jordan Travis's level. What I'm saying is he will be serviceable, and it'll give you a peek into what Florida State will look like in the next season. But no, the number 1 team plays the number 8 team in the nation. The number 4 team plays the number 6 team in the nation. The number 5 team plays the number 9 team in the nation. And I think I'm missing another one here.
2 and 3.
And 2 and 3 play each other next weekend. All of this takes care of itself. And, you know, so if Michigan loses, per their logic, Michigan needs to fall to the bottom of the 1-loss teams, because they've only beaten 1 ranked team. And, you know, there are other teams that are better than them right now currently at this spot. They'll have to ask, is Texas, who beat Alabama, not better than them? If Alabama beats Georgia, it's going to be very interesting. A lot of stuff can happen. And what we've seen, at least in my lifetime of watching football, every Florida national championship, you know what it had? Did you watch the last 2 weeks of the season when they got in? It looked like Florida had no chance, but complete anarchy happened. They fall into it, and they end up being the best team in the nation by winning the game. So what we have to do is just control what you can control. And if Florida State's 13-0 and they by some chance are robbed of it, then we will probably have the most exciting offseason of BS and all kinds of other stuff going forward. And that means Tate Rodemaker really did a very good job and we're probably looking at Florida State probably being a top 2 team ranked next year, and probably won't relinquish that. But I don't want that to happen to them. I do think that they go undefeated. Right now it's just, you're an easy target. We're talking about it now. Like every time something bad happens to Florida State fans react, and they'll stop doing that to you when you stop reacting. Just take it as what it is. It works itself out.
All right, James, can you give us the rundown of where to find you?
At Big Game James _36 on Twitter. We have Den Media Group on YouTube channel on the YouTube channel right now. Every time we get to over 1,000, we do a giveaway of 10% of that. So we're currently trying to get to 4,000. Once we get to 4,000 subscribers, we'll give away $400. Once if for some chance we get 5,000 by next week, we will give away a pair of tickets to the ACC championship, and we will give away the $500. Basically, if you're looking to go Christmas shopping, it's probably the best channel for you to subscribe to, just so you have the opportunity to win money. We give away the money on Big Games BS, and we're looking for. Obviously, we have membership levels, and there's all kinds of things that the membership levels can get you, and access and perks. But if you go to my page, we have in the tailgate in Charlotte for any FSU fan who wants to go. Even if you don't have tickets, we'll have TVs in the VIP suite at the tailgate, as well as I can't promise. I think somebody will be streaming the game from the parking lot, which we are 0.2 miles away from the stadium. But bigger than that, and Mark's always supported this, and I appreciate it. We're doing my 4th annual Gifts for Good Grades. Every year we get about 300. We're trying to get 300 kids between the Tallahassee and Duval County areas that have good grades or have high marks in behavior in school, or change marks in behavior in school, and they get to select a gift card. Not a gift card, a Christmas gift. We give them an Amazon wish list. They kind of write out the stuff that they want to do on Amazon. You could go to jamescoleman.givesback.com. You can purchase the gift as they come up on Amazon, or you can go there and you can donate $30 or whatever denomination you want to, and we purchase all the gifts for the kids, and we give it to them right before they leave to go to school. So we want to reward kids for doing the right thing.
George.
Man, I'll never top that, man. But now that I'm off mute, I was trying to say earlier, if we get through these 2 games, 30 days off, healthy, anything can happen at that point. It'd be a lot of fun. But yeah, you can find me just right here on YouTube at The Renegade Report. We just did a really fun UF roundtable yesterday. Go check that out. Go subscribe if you guys will. We're about to hit 500 subscribers and hopefully get to 1,000 before the playoffs over. So appreciate everybody, James and Mark, for helping us get out there and get those numbers up. We'll probably do an episode maybe Thursday or Friday, depending on how my partners in action are doing their holiday stuff. But yeah, at The Renegade Report right here on YouTube.
Awesome. I am off to Miami. Join us there in 2 minutes, folks. We'll see you then.